My parents chose a concert over my cancer surgery, now they beg for help. My mother chose a pop singer over my potential death sentence. That's not drama, that's a fact. The words came through my phone, each one a perfectly polished little stone thrown at my head. We can't cancel Adele. That would ruin your sister's entire year. I squeezed the cold metal of the hospital bed rail, my knuckles turning white. The antiseptic smell of the room, the thin, scratchy gown, it all faded into the background. All I could hear was her voice, that breezy, dismissive tone she used whenever my problems became inconvenient. "Mom," I said, my voice dangerously steady. "I have a tumor. They need to take it out. Now." I needed her to watch the twins, my sweet Sophia and Grace, just 8 months old. The thought of them with a stranger while I was under a knife, it was a special kind of hell. A new kind of terror I'd never known before. My father's voice rumbled in the background, a familiar chorus of annoyance. "Always so dramatic, Naomi. Can't you find someone else? We've had these tickets for months." Months. I'd had this tumor growing inside me for who knows how long. A ticking clock I didn't even know was there. But the concert tickets, those had a date. A real priority. I'm Naomi Clark. 34 years old. And for the last decade, I've been the family ATM. The emergency contact. The one who cleans up the messes. As a senior marketing manager at Hollowgate Systems here in Portland, I make good money. Good enough to be a single mother to twin girls and still send my parents $500 every single month. Without fail. That's before the groceries. Before the down payment on my sister Kelly's car. Before the 1,000 other emergencies that always seem to pop up. I thought that meant something. I thought it bought me more than just their fleeting gratitude. I thought it bought me a lifeline. A single, solitary moment where they would drop everything for me. "The concert is tomorrow," my mother said, her voice laced with impatience, as if I were a child asking for candy before dinner. "Your sister would be devastated. Surely the surgery can wait a day." The surgeon's face flashed in my mind. His words were clear. Immediately. Increased risk of complications. The words echoed in the sterile room. Here I was, staring at a ceiling full of tiny, perforated holes, arguing for my own importance. Arguing for my life. "Mom, this isn't a dental cleaning," I whispered, the fight draining out of me. "It's cancer. They have to operate." A sharp sigh crackled through the phone. "Well, I don't know what to tell you, Naomi. Maybe you should have thought of this before having babies without a father around." The line went quiet. Not dead, just empty. In that crushing silence, I heard my father mutter it again. Always creating problems at the worst times. A single tear escaped, hot and angry, tracing a path down my temple. It wasn't a surprise. That was the coldest part. Deep down, in a place I never wanted to look, I knew. I knew my place. The tumor on the scan wasn't the only malignancy I was dealing with. There was another one, a growth that had been poisoning my family for years, and it had just been brought into the light. I was always the responsible one. Kelly was the fun one. While she was at parties, I was working at a greasy spoon, saving for a future they never seemed to think I needed. They worried I was too serious. They celebrated when Kelly dropped out of college to find herself. My own graduation, summa cum laude, earned a passing nod. I remembered the phone call 3 years ago. The panic in my dad's voice. "We're going to lose the house, Naomi." I didn't hesitate. I drained my savings, every penny I'd meticulously set aside for a rainy day. their rainy day. My emergency fund became their get-out-of-jail-free card. And when Kelly needed a new car to get to her new job, a job she'd quit 6 months later, I covered the down payment. No questions asked. Every time, my mother would say the same thing to her friends, a little laugh in her voice. "Oh, Naomi always lands on her feet. She's got that good job and everything figured out." They never saw the 2 a.m. emails I sent after the twins were asleep. They never saw the dinners that consisted of a bowl of cereal so I could send them an extra $100 for their bills. They never saw the woman who put her own life on hold, postponing her own checkups, her own needs, because family was supposed to be everything. Because blood was supposed to be thicker than water. But as I lay in that hospital bed, I realized blood can also be toxic. A nurse knocked, a cheerful sound that felt completely alien. "Miss Clark? We're ready for you now. Is your childcare sorted?" I'd spent the last hour on my phone, my fingers shaking, booking an emergency babysitting service. The cost was obscene. A gut punch to my already strained budget. But I had no choice. "Yes," I said, my voice flat. "Everything's arranged." He smiled, checking his chart. "Good. Your neighbor seems very reliable. Mrs. Patterson, right? She's been asking about you." Mrs. Patterson. The sweet, elderly woman from 2B. She brought me a casserole last week just because she said I looked tired. She had shown more genuine concern in the past hour than my own mother had in a lifetime. That said it all, didn't it? The anesthesia was a welcome oblivion. Waking up was harder. The ache in my abdomen was a dull throb, but the one in my chest was a sharp, gaping wound. The tumor was gone. Benign. The word should have filled me with relief, but I just felt hollowed out. I stared at my phone. An hour passed. Finally, I unlocked it. No missed calls from my parents. No texts. Not a single "Are you alive?" But there were messages from Kelly. 3 of them. The first was a picture of her outfit. A glittery top and tight jeans. Pre-concert glam. "Wish you were here." Not really, hospital vibes are a downer, lol. The second was a blurry video of them in the car, my mother waving from the passenger seat, my father focused on the road, a rare smile on his face. The third video was from inside the arena. The roar of the crowd, the flashing lights. I could hear my mother shouting over the music to someone off camera. "Naomi will be fine. She always is." I dropped the phone on the blanket as if it had burned me. A nurse walked in, her brow furrowed with concern. "Are you in pain? I can increase your medication." I shook my head, wiping at the tears I hadn't realized were falling. "No," I choked out. "It's not that kind of pain." The next morning, they discharged me into a world that felt fundamentally different. I called the sitter. She told me Mrs. Patterson had checked on the girls twice during the night, bringing them a little knitted toy she'd made. The bill was nearly $300. I paid it without blinking. My daughters had been safe. They had been cared for. That was all that mattered. Driving home, listening to Sophia and Grace babbling in their car seats, a cold, hard clarity settled over me. The anesthesia was gone, but the fog I'd been living in for years had finally lifted. I was done. Done being their solution. Done being their backstop. Done pretending their love wasn't entirely transactional. I walked into my apartment, the scent of baby powder and home washing over me. I put the girls in their playpen, opened my laptop, and went straight to my bank's website. The automatic transfer. $500. The first of every month for 6 years. I stared at the screen. Click. Cancelled. It was that easy. That quiet. I opened the grocery delivery app. Deleted my parents' address. Removed their payment information. I opened my contacts. Mom. Dad. Kelly. Block. 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 It felt like stepping off a cliff. Terrifying. Exhilarating. I was free falling, but for the first time, I suspected I might have wings. I put the twins down for their nap. As I tucked the blanket around Grace, she reached up, her tiny, perfect hand patting my cheek. Sophia gave me a wide, gummy smile. My girls. My world. My responsibility. My phone buzzed on the counter. An unknown number. I knew who it was. My family, trying to find a way back in through a side door. I turned the phone face down. I walked to the kitchen and took out a steak from the freezer. I was going to cook myself a real meal. And I was going to enjoy every single bite. The silence was the strangest part. For 3 days, my phone didn't ring with a crisis. No texts demanding money. No calls filled with manufactured drama about a bill they'd forgotten to pay. It was just quiet. I healed. I cared for my daughters. I breathed. It was on Thursday evening, a lifetime later, that the peace was shattered. A frantic pounding on my apartment door. A sound so urgent it sent a spike of adrenaline through me. I was in the middle of bath time, the bathroom filled with steam and the sound of splashing. I grabbed both babies, wrapped them in fluffy towels, and carried them into the living room, my heart hammering against my ribs. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. It was Kelly. Her face was a mess of smeared mascara and tear tracks. She was alone. That was new. Usually, my parents sent her in first, their little canary in the coal mine, while they waited in the car. Naomi! I know you're in there, she yelled, her voice muffled by the door. Please, we need to talk. Something terrible has happened. The old Naomi would have thrown the door open. The old Naomi would have been consumed by a need to fix it. But the old Naomi was gone. She died on an operating table while her family was singing along to Rolling in the Deep. I slid the chain lock into place and opened the door a few inches. Sophia started to whimper at the loud noise. What do you want, Kelly? Her eyes were wide, frantic. Can I come in? I've been calling you for 2 days. Mom and Dad are freaking out. I'm not available to them anymore, I said. The words felt strange on my tongue. Powerful. Or to you. The confusion on her face looked almost real. What do you mean? Naomi, this is serious. Dad lost his job yesterday. They're going to lose the house. There it was. The flicker of panic. The familiar urge to ask, how much? The conditioned response to their emergencies. I pushed it down, hard. I looked at her, really looked at her. At the practiced distress. The way her lower lip trembled just so. It was a performance. And I was done being her audience. That's unfortunate, I said, my voice as calm as a frozen lake. But it's not my problem. Her jaw dropped. Not your problem? Naomi, you've helped them for years. They're counting on you. Were they counting on me when I was about to have a tumor cut out of my body? The question hung in the air between us, heavy and sharp. Kelly's face shifted. The panic gave way to calculation as she searched for the right excuse. That was different. You know how Mom is. And your surgery turned out fine anyway. You're being so dramatic about this. Dramatic. The word hit me like a slap. My father's word. The family catch-all for any feeling of mine that was inconvenient for them. I had emergency surgery, Kelly. And my family chose a concert over watching my infant children, I said, spelling it out as if for a child. And I'm the one being dramatic? They really did have those tickets for a long time, she stammered. And Mom gets anxiety around hospitals, stop. I held up a hand. The gesture stopped her mid-sentence. Just stop. I'm done. I'm done funding the lives of people who treat me like an inconvenience. The mask shattered. Her face, stripped of its rehearsed victimhood, became ugly. You can't just do this. You can't abandon your family over one little misunderstanding. They're scared, Naomi. What are they going to do? They should have thought of that before they treated their daughter like a bank, I said. I started to close the door. She pushed against it, her designer handbag slipping off her shoulder. Wait! What if they apologize? What if Dad says he's sorry? Would you help then? The offer was so baldly transactional it was almost funny. An apology not as an act of remorse, but as a key to reopen the vault. This isn't about an apology, Kelly. I pushed the door firmly. This is about me finally seeing you all for who you are. Her face crumpled. We're your family, Naomi. We love you. The words were a last, desperate volley. No. I said, the truth of it settling deep in my bones. You love what I provide. And I'm closing my account. I shut the door, ignoring the new round of pleading. I slid the deadbolt home. The solid, final click was the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. Grace was crying, upset by the shouting. I picked her up, burying my face in her soft, downy hair, and focused on her warmth. The knocking continued for 10 more minutes, then silence. I heard her car door slam, the engine roar to life, and then she was gone. I felt hollow. But clean. Like I'd just performed a radical surgery on my own life, cutting out the cancer that had been slowly killing me. My phone buzzed. A text. From a new number. I didn't have to read it. I knew. I deleted it. Then another. I deleted that one, too. The days that followed were a siege. They tried everything. Emails to my work address, which I routed directly to trash. A call from my aunt, who I politely but firmly shut down. Then came the card in the mail. My father's neat, careful handwriting on the envelope. Inside, a stilted paragraph about regretting any hurt feelings and hoping we can move past this difficult time. It read like a corporate press release. There was no love in it. No remorse. Just a clumsy attempt to meet the minimum requirement for a transaction. The most audacious move was Kelly showing up at my office. The security guard on the ground floor called up. "Ma'am, there's a Kelly Clark here to see you," she says. "It's a family emergency." I walked to the window of my corner office. I could see her down on the plaza, pacing back and forth, stabbing at her phone. She looked ragged. Stressed. For the first time in her life, the full weight of our parents' expectations was on her shoulders. I felt a brief, sharp pang of something that might have been pity. Then I remembered the hospital. I remembered. The concert photos. I remembered the word dramatic. I'm not available, I told the guard. Please ask her to leave the premises. I watched her argue for a moment, then slump in defeat and walk away. It wasn't a victory. It was just a consequence. I was sad for the family I thought I had. I was sad for the years I spent trying to buy a love that was never for sale. But underneath the sadness, a new feeling was taking root. Relief. Pure, unburdened relief. 2 weeks after Kelly's failed office ambush, the new quiet was becoming my normal. The twins were sleeping through the night. I was sleeping through the night. I'd even opened a high-yield savings account just for Sophia and Grace, and for the first time, it felt like I was building a future, not just plugging holes in a sinking ship. I was giving the girls their bath when I heard it. The slam of a car door, followed by heavy, determined footsteps on the stairs. My apartment was on the second floor. The footsteps stopped directly outside my door. The knock wasn't Kelly's frantic pounding. It was slow, deliberate, authoritative. I dried my hands, my heart starting a slow, heavy drumbeat. I crept to the peephole. My father. He was standing there in his good jacket, the one he wore to church, holding his hat in his hands. Like a supplicant. Behind him, half in shadow, was my mother. She looked diminished, smaller. Her shoulders were slumped, and her face was etched with a weariness I'd never seen before. They stood there, waiting. My father shifted his weight, checked his watch. My mother whispered something, and he shook his head, a quick, irritable gesture. They looked like strangers. Strangers about to ask for a very large loan they had no intention of repaying. A part of me, the old, broken part, wanted to open the door. To hear the excuses. To watch them squirm. But the new part, the part that loved my daughters more than I feared my parents' disapproval, held me fast. I looked back at the bathroom, where my girls were splashing and giggling, oblivious. Their laughter was the only thing that mattered. I walked away from the door. They knocked again, louder this time. Naomi. My father's voice, muffled but clear. We know you're in there. We can hear the babies. Then my mother's voice, thin and reedy. Please, honey. We just want to talk. We're your parents. We love you. The words were so empty they almost made me laugh. Where was that love a month ago? Where was it for the last 34 years? They didn't love me. They loved my compliance. They loved my money. They loved the version of me that existed only to serve their needs. They stayed for an hour. My father's voice grew tighter. Angrier. This is ridiculous, Naomi. You can't just shut us out because your feelings got hurt. We raised you better than this. But they hadn't. They had raised me to be a resource. The woman standing on the side of the door, the woman who was finally protecting her own peace. I had to raise her myself. Finally, the footsteps retreated. A car started. They were gone. I looked through the peephole. An envelope lay on my doormat. My name in my father's hand. I left it there. For 3 days, I stepped over it. A little test of my resolve. Each time, I felt stronger. On Friday morning, on my way out, I finally picked it up. I didn't open it. I walked it to the dumpster at the end of the parking lot and dropped it in. It made no sound. At work, my colleague Brittany caught me smiling at my screen. "What's got you so happy? You seem lighter." I was lighter. I had shed hundreds of pounds of obligation and guilt. "Just sleeping better," I said. It was the truth. That afternoon, a call came through on my desk line. A number I didn't recognize. "Miss Clark? This is Janet from Meridian Bank, regarding the account ending in 4782. My blood ran cold for a second. "I don't have an account with that number." "The account is for a Thomas and Margaret Clark," she said, her voice professional. "You are listed as an authorized user and the emergency contact. I'm calling because the account is significantly overdrawn." So, I thought, I had forgotten one last thread. "I need to be removed from that account," I said, my voice sharp and clear. "Immediately. I am no longer associated with those individuals." "Of course, Miss Clark," she said. "I can process that right away." After I hung up, I sat there, staring at my computer. A few months ago, that call would have triggered a full-blown panic attack. I would have been moving money, juggling credit cards, sacrificing my own security to save them. Now, I felt nothing. Just a quiet, clinical interest. 3 weeks. That's how long it took them to burn through everything without my support. My phone buzzed. A text. Another new number. It was Kelly. Mom and Dad's electricity got shut off. They're at my place, but my landlord will evict me. Please, I stared at the message. I saw their faces. I saw the concert tickets. I saw the hospital bed. I saw the envelope on my doormat. Then I deleted the text. I opened my own banking app. I looked at the balance in the account for Sophia and Grace. It was growing. It was safe. It was theirs. A future I was building for them, free from the debts of the past. The cycle was broken. And the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was peace.